It was this meeting of the Oconee Planning Commission to order. From my angle, it always looks like 7 o'clock, a few minutes early, so we've just gotten used to that. This is the May 15th meeting of the Oconee Planning Commission. We are a advisory committee to the Board of Commissioners. So any decisions that we make tonight on a rezone request or other issues will be forwarded to the Oconee Board of Commissioners or appropriate city councils. We don't have any of those tonight. So tonight's agenda is out back, and there was an opportunity to sign up to speak. You may have an opportunity to step up if you hear something that you want to speak on that you didn't know about earlier. So this is the procedure, and given some of the topics, I went ahead and brought the stopwatch today. The planning department staff is going to present the report and recommendations that they have for each request. Then we'll open up a public input section. First, the petitioner or the petitioner's representative will be asked to come to the mic. After he finishes, we'll ask for public comment in favor of the request. And between the petitioner's portion and any people that want to speak in favor of it, we're going to limit it to about 20 minutes. Then we'll close that portion and we'll invite those that might be in opposition of the request to come up. This period will only last about 20 minutes also. So you need to be a little careful of your time. The petitioner, if they have time allowed, and sometimes we make a little bit of time for them, we'll have a chance to clarify any of the questions that they might be able to sort out before it comes up here. But eventually we're going to close the public speaking portion, and I'll bring it up to my colleagues here at the front of the room. At that time, it'll be between their questions and the petitioner or the staff that these guys might need to clarify some things. And then once these guys run out of questions, I'll ask for any motion pertaining to the request, and we'll go from there. So for the benefit of those present, watching online, there's a few, all the comments should be done at the podium and not from the crowd, please. When you reach the podium, if you are going to come up to speak, please state your name clearly and your home address. Please direct your comments to the guys up here, myself and the guys, not the audience itself. And then if there's multiple speakers in opposition or in favor, please try not to repeat exactly what the last guy said. You can say ditto or something to that effect, and then go on with anything that you thought they might have left out in their time at the mic, so that everybody gets a chance to put the big picture together. We ask the audience to extend a courtesy and not applaud or commenting on from their seats on any of things that go on with the speakers. So with that introduction, I have an agenda in front of me, and the first thing, order of business, is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. I now bring it to the commission. Are there any comments or corrections? All right, I'm not seeing too many people needing my attention. So if not, I'll ask, is there a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Have a second?
Yeah.
Okay. And all in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting as written? Thank you. So that brings us to our first item of tonight. I'll ask Mr. Herring to come present P-220294.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Again, your first case this evening is P-220294. LifeMark Development LLC. This is the aerial photograph of the subject property B02109AA. It's currently zoned R1 in the regional center character area. And again, the request is rezoned from R1 to OBP zoning for an office with warehouse development. along Julian Drive and Mars Hill Road. This is the concept plan that is in your application packets showing the office buildings along Mars Hill and the proposed warehouse building to the rear. Slightly larger version is also in your packets. And staff recommends conditional approval with our 3 standard conditions. We've also added number 4, the proposed building shall have facades of brick and stone. Number 5, the office buildings shall have pitched hip roofs. Number 6, per Public Works Department review, an ADA ramp must be provided at the intersection of Mars Hill Road and Julian Drive for future sidewalk extension across Julian Drive. Thank you.
All right. So at this time, can I ask the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to come up?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Clayton Honeycutt with Carter Engineering, and we have helped the owner prepare the rezone application. Just a little background on the project. The current owner operates a printing business that is in Gwinnett County, and he wishes to move it to Oconee County. So he purchased this piece of land with the intent of developing an office complex with one of the buildings housing his printing company. We have referred to it as a warehouse, and it probably needs a little clarification in the sense that it will not operate as maybe the true sense of a warehouse. The printing office will have a portion of it that will have offices, and then some printing equipment, and then they will have a staging area where they'll store printed materials before it's either shipped out or delivered to clients. So it's not a warehouse in the sense of you're going to have constant large truck traffic with pickups, deliveries, and that sort of thing. The entire 30,000 square foot office / warehouse will be conditioned space. Can't have printed material in unconditioned space. So brick and the stone facade will help the office complex have a nice appearance. You won't have a warehouse feel. That, other than the recommendations in the zoning report, I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, I'll ask, is there anyone that wants to step up to the podium to speak in favor of this project? And I don't see a lot of people getting my attention. I did have Clayton is the only one that signed up. All right. So for the moment, I'll close the in favor of it. Clayton may be called back if he's got some questions he can answer. I do have a Ian Taylor on those opposed.
Yeah, good evening. Ian Taylor, 1331 to Andrew Drive. My concern was about the warehouse that he spoke of. I understand that's going to be a warehouse for the printing company now, but the fact is that it will be a warehouse. And how are they planning on accessing that? Be down Julian Drive, but Julian Drive access onto 316 is going to be a flyover. There's not going to be access to 316. It's going to be a flyover at some point, or at worst or best closed off, so there'll be no westbound traffic. So any westbound traffic out of Julian Drive is still going to come out onto Mars Hill and have to go down Mars Hill to get onto 316 down there to go westbound. So that's really my concern is what's happening with the warehouse and the traffic off of Julian Drive.
Yes. All right, that was the only name I had on the list, but anyone else that wanted to speak, you can step up now at this time. All right, so I don't see anybody rushing me okay, so we'll close the opposition. Mr. Honeycutt, I don't see that you need to answer any of those questions. Okay. So at this time, I'll close the public portion of this particular request and bring it up to you guys at the table. Does anybody need more light?
A little bit would hurt.
Could you hit that light? All right. So commissioners, it's with you guys. Anybody got questions?
I have some questions for Guy. One obvious one is the buffer.
Yes.
15-foot buffer. Our standard's 25.
Right, and so if we're gonna have control, I'll just go back to the concept plan. This is, there'll be a buffer along the residential portion of 50 foot.
Oh, okay.
And then this is a non-residential property, it's an AG property. So it would be that 15 is shown.
All right. Thanks.
Mhm. Yes.
You're up there. Is this the representative architect for the office buildings or the warehouse?
I believe it's supposed to look like both. It will be the brick and stone as we've conditioned. So that are their current offices, I believe. But that would be a good question for the applicant also.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a question.
Yes.
Okay. So to Mr. Taylor's comment, I think Morris Hill right now is no through truck,
Right,
right?
right.
So any truck traffic, could there be a requirement that they right turn out to go over to the 78 to exit? Instead of all the way down Marcel Road to the Oconee connector?
Yeah, I believe they would have to. Yeah, right. But
So no
because it's a no truck route in
Yeah,
that
so
direction. That's right.
there'd be a no left turn for truck sign, or would they just, how would we?
They would know that,
how would
or they should know that.
Yeah.
And if they did it a couple of times, they would find out, the sheriff would stop them.
Anybody else for the guy while he's up there? So Matt, do you want to pursue your question?
I do, yeah, I need to ask Carter. Engineering a question.
Yes, so
Yeah.
the pictures in the rezone report, yeah, that is a representative of his existing office space, which would be the 30,000 square foot building. And there is a condition in the staff report that the other offices have pitch tip roofs,
Mhm.
which the applicant has no issues with.
Right,
So building 2 and 3
okay.
would have the pitch hip.
So the front will kind of look like that, and then.
Potentially, yeah, but it would most likely be a steel frame building with a sloped roof and a parapet wall around.
Right.
And then
Okay.
the other two buildings would be the pitch tip.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me while I'm up here?
But condition number 5. Would condition number 5 allow that?
Condition number 5 will allow, condition number 5. Makes it have a hip ring on the offices, not on the warehouse.
Okay,
So the warehouse will have a standing parapet.
And that was our understanding of that
Right.
condition,
I
yes.
didn't turn to that page, so I just figured you might have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it.
Got
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What is the heights approximately of the warehouse building?
Of that is I believe we have it's a 30,000 square foot building and I know its current one is taller. Let's see if we have a height.
It's a 2-story, didn't
Right,
That's for the warehouse building, I think, the 20 story.
it is a 1-story,
So
it?
single story.
it can still be pretty tall.
Yes, I can.
Or
Yeah.
do we have a height? for that?
I don't think he has a set architectural set of plans on height yet. It would be limited by the zoning.
Zoning?
Yeah.
One other question for you, does he have some ideas for what the remaining office space that we use for? Or is he planning to use all of the office space?
As of now, his only office space would be building 1.
Okay,
So I think that would go out.
okay.
But all 3 buildings would use the 2,500 gallon septic tank.
That's correct.
All right, have we got it all sorted out?
I have one more question for Guy.
There you go.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
So Guy, given the 2,500 gallon septic,
Mhm.
what does that restrict? As far as the usage of the properties, number of toilets, faucets, what have you?
Right, so that'll be up to environmental health to
Yeah.
determine. So it'll be based on the number of fixtures for a commercial development.
Thank you.
All right. One last call for questions. All right. With no further questions, I'll close the commission's portion of this and ask if there's any motion or,
I'll make the motion, we approve P 220294
okay,
as submitted with staff recommendation.
with recommendations as written.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt has, who wants to second that?
I'll second.
Okay, Steve. All right, I have a first and a second. I can now ask for a vote. If you're in favor of this project with conditions, please raise your right hand. All right, so I've got 5, and then opposed. Everyone, okay. All right, that will be sent to the planning or Board of Commissioners and with a vote of 5-1. All right. So Guy, I'll ask you to come up and present the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. You have P 220317, Chambers Family Partnership LLP. And this is located along Meriwether Drive and Chambers Court in Jennings Mill. It is currently zoned R2 and R3 in the regional center character area. And the request is to rezone from R2 two-family residential and R3 multifamily residential to R1 single-family residential zoning for a minor subdivision development. This is the concept plan that you have in your application packet, slightly larger version showing the 6 lots proposed along Chambers and Meriwether with a private access drive coming in to access these 3. And staff recommends conditional approval with our standard 3 conditions. Thank you.
Right. So I'll ask for the applicant or the applicant's representative. There you go. This one.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants, 3651 Mars Hill Road in Watkinsville, 30677. I'm here with Dr. and Ms. McCormick tonight. They are the developer. In this case, they currently own a practice here in Oconee County and want to expand and relocate to the subject property. And I do have a couple of slides for you I'd like to show. What you see here, when we first started looking at this property, I went to Guy Herring's office, and knowing that Jennings Mill has been around a long time, I think I was in high school when it first started. And it's obviously a big development, a big part of the county. Went to Guy Herring's office and said, okay, this is what we want to do. Can you kind of explain to me, or let's kind of dig in to see the history of the property. And this is the last amendment that we could find from 1995. And if this looks a little confusing, it's because it is a little confusing. There's a lot going on here. And what I did was I took that same exhibit that I just showed you and I added some red notes here. This is Meriwether Drive right now. And Meriwether Drive was installed per the Jennings Mill, for the most part, per the Jennings Mill plan development. The subject property is right here. And one point of reference is the existing pond right there. That's been there a long time. So the next few slides, you can kind of keep the pond in mind. Originally, Chambers Road was running right through the middle of the subject property. Okay, so you've got Meriwether Drive, you've got the pond, then you've got Chambers Drive here. Okay, then you have another road that kind of snaked around here. So the property that we're talking about tonight, originally as part of Jennings Mill, had at least 16 or 17 residential lots here. It had 2 roads through the middle of the property, and it had a good bit of commercial office here. So on this subject property that we're going to be talking about tonight, there is an awful lot going on in the original Jennings Mill PUD. I would point out too that Chambers Court was changed. You can kind of see that red dashed line. It kind of comes into here now. So that's changed. That changed back. I think originally got that approved back in 1995 or thereabouts. So this is what was approved in the original PUD. This, and I apologize, it didn't come through real good, but I'll kind of draw a line around the subject property that we're talking about right here. Okay, there's that pond I mentioned to you. There's Chambers Court that comes into the T intersection with Meriwether, and here's Meriwether Drive. And so we're talking about this piece of property here. The zoning is a split zoning on the property. The dark blue is zoned R3. And again, there's the pond right there. The property around it is either zoned R3 or R2. And so as you know, what that means is R2 means two-family residential. R3 means multifamily residential. That's what our UDC shows. And so what we're wanting to do tonight is take this property that was originally had 16 or 17 residential lots. It had 2 roads through the middle of the property. It had a lot of commercial and office development, just a lot going on here. And we're trying to simplify it. We're trying to take the multifamily and the 2-family residential zoning designation and bring it back to what really it should be. And that's a single family development. This is our site plan. And essentially the light yellow is what we're talking about with this zoning case. These tracts are either a minimum of 1.5 acres, and it goes up to, this is the largest tract that's roughly 7 acres. And so they are larger tracts. They're just going to be 6 of them in total. So it's a vast improvement over what was originally contemplated in the Jennings Mill PUD. I did reach out to the HOA presidents, had a couple months ago to Jennings Mill, reached out to them, sent them the site plan, said, hey, I'd be glad to talk to you guys about it, meet with you, explain it, whatever we need to do. We've had several email correspondence since then. I understand they had a meeting a couple of nights ago, and I've talked to another board member. And when they understand really what this is kind of bringing this down and simplifying things and putting some nice large lots in there, that I had no objection that I've heard. So, so happy to try to answer any questions about this, but I hope that can explain it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So on the sheet that was out back, I don't have anybody else written down who wants to speak in favor. I'll give the opportunity at this time if anybody wants to speak in favor. All right, go ahead.
My name's Sam Strickland. I don't live in that community, but I am very much aware of it.
Say your last name again, please.
I'm sorry,
Say your last name.
Sam Strickland.
Thank you.
I actually live at 1030 Hard Creek Way.
Gotcha.
So the thing about Jennings Mill, it is a landmark development. And with that in mind, and what we've done with the schools in Oconee County, anytime we add high density housing to the county, anywhere we do it, we have to have our children in mind. We have to have a facility where we can teach. And I'm in favor of what he's trying to do here. Reduce the number of homes and therefore the number of families and therefore the number of children. So it's a good move in a community that's actually set up to manage properties in that way. So I speak in favor of it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Strickland. All right, anybody else inspired to come up? This is in favor of the project. Okay.
My name is Cynthia Cohn and I live on Chambers Court, and I am signed up as opposed. However, I was going by the proposal that was submitted and not by the proposal that was given tonight. We've gotten information that was different than what was presented tonight.
Okay.
And if the proposal is to redesign this as to rezone it as R1, that's fine with us.
Okay.
We do not want it R3, even though the area shows a lot of R3 around there. There's only one piece of property that has an R3 structure. Everything else already has single family homes.
Gotcha.
There is no multifamily home in the area. So R1 is what we actually are in favor of for that tract.
That definitely is what this application
Okay.
is. Okay. All right. So then, can I assume that George wants to speak in favor? Okay.
Thank you, board members. My name is George Cohn. I'm one of the 3 residents of Chambers Court, 1091 Chambers Court. The last structure on Chambers Court is actually the Jennings Mill Golf Course. So again, as my wife said, I originally opposed this because the placards that had been sent out originally said from R2 to R3, and today's proposal was for R1. So we are in support of that.
Okay.
But just for the board's note, this is the 3rd set of signs that have been placed out there. We had one in February that was referred to that. I know it got withdrawn. The 2nd set of signs alerting us to it actually designated the area as AG. So I contacted Guy's office, that got changed, and now as we're coming here, the proposal that we saw online still referred to it as R2, R3. I'm just saying that as a member of the community, we can only go with what's online. So please clarify. One piece I do have in opposition to this is the location of the road on Meriwether. What is really not depicted very well in that diagram where the new road will come out to that cul-de-sac. Okay, I'm back to my Army days. So obviously you see the bend in the road, but what's really not depicted here is this is a very sharp downhill and it goes to a sharp uphill. That is, at night, there is 0 light there. So if a road is put in there, which would be high traffic, there needs to be some kind of delineation for a stop sign or slow down or something to that effect. Because this area right now is an agricultural wildlife area for deer and others. And often they cross right in this area. Now, obviously with the building, some of that's going to change, but with an opening right here, there really needs to be some sort of depiction put in to say that traffic needs to slow down. Or limited sight. So,
Signage at the very least.
so I pull my opposition after this. Thank you.
Understood. All right. Thank you for that. All right, so that, you want to speak in favor? We're-
I don't know if I'm in favor or not, but I got a question.
well, you could come up, introduce yourself. You'll have to throw the question sort of in the air and we'll see if we can get an answer for it.
Apologize. And forgive me, I tried to look at the diagrams and I'm not very
All right,
intelligent.
first off, your name and.
Terry Toms, I live in Millstone Run over in Jennings Mill. I too am in favor of the concept. I just have questions around if somebody could do a better job of or maybe I missed it, describing the roads that are going to be. I know it's part of the next thing on the list. I just like to understand the road process, where they're adding the roads, and to his point, I just don't understand that yet, and it ties to the next zoning request because they're connected. So until I know how those roads are going to be handled, and a little bit more about the traffic flow, I can't be for or against. Thank you.
Understood. Well, I've got you listed. I'll go ahead and put an arrow in both directions. All right, and who do I have here?
Hey, Christine Mahaffey, with Mahaffey and Associates Real Estate. We're actually in one of the office subdivisions further up. I'm in favor of going to R1. We definitely got mostly single family homes in that neighborhood, and we want to keep it as that. And what they said about encouraging that with, children and single family homes is true. Mr. Cohn actually had a valid point about that blind spot, maybe a stop sign or whatever. My added suggestion as a consideration is maybe put a speed bump there in the appropriate place, because there are speed bumps further down on Meriwether Drive. And so it would just make sense to add one there, and that might be a solution to that problem.
Okay.
That's it.
Like I said, some of these questions, we have to throw them in the air for the moment, and we'll see if we can get them sorted out here. And I'll use this time as a reminder, the Board of Commissioners will actually address some of these things, perhaps if we don't get them done today. All right, so I'll give one last call for those speaking in favor of this project. All right. And now I'll ask because I don't see any further hands, I'll ask you, are there any that need to speak in opposition that haven't already been up to say that they're on the fence? All right. I don't see any additional, so I'll go ahead and close the public comment section and I'll bring it back up here to you guys. And then if we want to address some of these questions, we'll try to address those too. But first, you guys, get your, oh, yes, I guess I could. Mr. Carter, if you want to go ahead and see if any of those questions were answerable at this time.
Sure, I can address the access issue. So there are, let me start over here. There's one lot, existing lot that fronts Chambers Court. That'll have a driveway off of Chambers Court for this lot. For these 5 lots here, this will be a private access drive that the other 5 lots will access. So there'll be 1 point of ingress egress off of Meriwether Drive for these 5 lots. And then that's it. That's all the access that'll be proposed here. This entrance here will have to go through, once we go through rezoning, it'll have to go through several rounds of review with county staff, public works and all that. And if there are speed bumps or anything like that, we're happy to, comply with whatever the public works director has in mind there. But that's the only access. There is no connectivity through the subdivision to any other commercial properties. Thank you.
I got a question for Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Is that, you said it was a private access drive, is that gated private access or not?
There is no plans for the time being to gate it. We would like that as an option, but it's not something. that we're- Yeah.
You thought that.
But the idea of a private drive means the turnaround doesn't have to be quite as.
Yeah, the county doesn't take responsibility.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the school children have to go to most likely.
They do.
All right, any other questions? For Guy or for Mr. Carter? All right, well then. You guys think you got it pictured in your head and understand it, then I'll ask if there's a motion in any direction.
I'll motion to approve with staff recommendations and conditional requirements.
Okay, Stephen has made a first, so Chris will get a second. And so this is to approve with staff's recommendations and comments. All in favor, please raise your right hand. That's unanimous. I don't have to count. Good. All right, so a similar neighborhood, but different project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Again, this is P 230046 Chambers Family Partnership LLLP. This is parcel C 0103A, sorry, and a portion of parcel C 01033K. These 2 properties are currently zoned AG and R2 in the regional center character area. And again, the request is rezone C 0133A zoned AG and a portion of parcel C 01033K, which is zoned R2 to OIP zoning for an office development along Jennings Mill. And you'll notice in your packets, this is the proposed concept plan. And staff recommends conditional approval with our standard 3 conditions. Number 4, to be in keeping with surrounding office developments, pitch tip roofs shall be incorporated on each building. And number 5, a traffic impact analysis shall be submitted to the county for review, and any recommendations shall be incorporated into the preliminary site plan and construction plan set. Thank you.
All right, it shows that Jeff Carter is representing this one as well.
Jeff Carter, 3651 Mars Hill Road, Watkinsville, 30677. And I am also representing Dr. and Ms. McCormick on this project as well. As I've mentioned in the previous zoning case, they do own a medical facility now, and they're going to be moving a medical office, I should say, and they're going to be moving their personal medical office to this property if approved. Could we maybe put the site plan back on the screen? Thank you. Right now, this property, I think what I'll do is just say north is up and east is to the right, if that's okay with everybody. There are existing offices to the north. Here's Meriwether Drive. There are existing offices that border this property. To the east, you can see the yellow part there. That was the previous zoning case that we just heard. And this is a daycare center here. And then this is an office complex here as well. So there's either offices all around us or a daycare. On the other side of the daycare is the large Resource Valley office development that's been here for quite some time. I do want to make it really clear to everyone that the only access into this office development is directly off of Jennings Mill Road. So you can't get to this office development through from Meriwether Drive. This rezone, if you look at a zoning map, it's kind of interesting. This piece of property is currently zoned ag property, and everything around it has been zoned commercial or residential or OIP. And so we're wanting to take this property from an ag zoning to an OIP, which is, as you know, office institutional professional, for the purpose of a professional office complex. The McCormicks will develop this property and sell pads for potential users or people that need office space. There are 5 recommendations in this that staff made, and we're okay with all 5. We're okay with 4 of them. We have one issue with number 4, and that is that these buildings have to have pitched hip roofs in keeping with the surrounding office developments. And let me tell you why it's a problem for us. We really want this office, or I should say the McCormicks really want this office development to be a current up-to-date office development. And what I mean by that is there's nothing wrong with the offices around the development here, but they were built in the 90s. A lot has changed. Now you can build really nice looking office buildings, a little more modern look, a little more attractive look, a little more current look really is what we're after. And so we don't want to be saddled with having to have a pitched hip roof on every office building that's there. And so it doesn't really, that kind of the whole pitched hip roof thing is in some of the zoning categories like B1, some of those other zoning categories, but not OIP. So we really want the flexibility of developing this as a almost like an upper scale office development. There are flat roofs right around the corner. So it's not like we would be setting a precedence with having something other than a pitched hip roof. I just think that was built in the 90s a lot, in the 80s a lot, and you got a brick building, you got a pitched roof, and it looks okay, but we want something a little more current. So we would ask you to strike that requirement, but otherwise would love to try to answer any questions that you may have. So thank you for your time.
Yes, I got a question.
Yes.
Well,
Jeff.
we're not in a question. We want presentation from them.
Okay.
All right. But make note of it. We'll
Right.
get it addressed. All right, so I don't have anybody that signed up in favor of this one. Given that some of you are from this neighborhood, anybody need to speak up? All right, go ahead.
I will, yeah. I didn't know about this until I came to this, but I think that's a great idea. We've got the other office buildings that are along the main road, and to add to that, I don't know if your owners have seen. There we go. If they've seen the new buildings that are down Quarterman's new office that they moved out to. that new office building complex. But that sounds like it's in line with what you were saying about keeping it modernized. And I think that would be a much
Go ahead and
nicer,
direct things up here, but
yeah, very nice addition to the front. And I know we would be,
so,
so I'm in favor of it.
all right. Anybody else want to add? And again, if you are the same sort of comment, you can say ditto, but you don't have to come up at all if you don't want to. All right. So we'll close the portion and we'll keep some time for Mr. Carter to come back if need be to answer the questions, but let's ask the opposition. Anybody want to speak in opposition of this? I don't have anybody signed up, but go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jay Sultan, 1181 Clopfilter Road in Bogart. I'm not actually speaking in opposition. I want to throw one of those questions in the air, like
Okay.
what you talked about before. And it does have to do with the traffic. I did live in Jennings Mill for about 5 years. And that was before it was all reconfigured around the way the parkway has come through there. But even when I lived there, the traffic on that road was problematic, both in volume and in speed. And of course, all the development that's happened has made that worse. I feel like I'm taking my life in my hands every time I turn out of Resource Valley these days. My question is, with the staff recommendation of number 5, where it talks about getting the traffic, they were right at the number that triggered it anyway, from what I saw in the application, 996, and I think that 1,000 is the trigger. If they get this impact analysis done, what then does that change? Is there a talk that it would cause the county to increase it to 3-lane? Would it change the angle of the road somehow so that the traffic patterns could be better managed? I would just want to understand, with this approval and the requirement or the staff recommendation becoming a requirement for a traffic study, what happens if it's concluded, man, there's going to be too much traffic, there's too much speed? How does that get addressed in the process after approval happens by the commissioners? That's my question for you.
We'll throw that one in the air. Mr. Carter. Well, first, let me ask, is there anyone else that needs to speak in opposition or bring up any other questions that might need to be addressed? Go ahead. And this is
Going again, 1091 Chambers Court.
Yeah.
Just in line with the last gentleman, I would look at the traffic pattern because with the opening of the Costco, it has also now increased the flow onto Jennings Mill Road, which has become not a 35-mile-an-hour zone, but frankly, about a 45-mile-an-hour zone. And the traffic has doubled. So part of your consideration we asked the board to look at is what can we do to mitigate or at least to reduce the amount of traffic flow on that road, whether we put a traffic light or something. Because right now with the Costco, just further south of that, traffic goes straight up the road because frankly, there's an easement onto it. Thank you.
all right. All right, so before I close opposition, anybody else need to speak?
I do have another question more than anything. So you mentioned that there was no plans to add an access road to Jennings Mill development. So I'm wondering if that's an option to be included as something to
this-
add later, or there's no plan to do that ever. Okay, because I didn't know if that would maybe help mitigate traffic into that, but that could create more traffic for Jennings Mill. So that would be a whole nother step.
All right.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of traffic questions. We'll see what we can. All right. So with that, I think I'll close the opposition. I don't see anybody else urgently needing my attention. And I will ask Mr. Carter if you want to tell me. I can see that one condition, number 3, that makes the counties tell you that in the future, we may put more onus on you, given the traffic study.
Yeah, I'll try to address 2 things with regards to traffic. Number one, when I talked to pretty much anybody I talked to about this in the community, which 2 or 3 people, their very first question was, we don't want traffic from this office development through Meriwether Drive. So we closed all that. We never intended for that to happen, but that was the very first question that was asked. So we don't feel like it's a really good idea to, funnel traffic back through to Meriwether. Second thing is, so with this condition, what that means is if the zoning is approved, we go to the next step. We're going to have to provide a traffic study that not only looks at traffic patterns right now, but would look at traffic patterns after the development is built. And also look at traffic patterns like 10 years from now. So the future, assuming, and we all can expect that the traffic is going to increase. So how do you mitigate that? So this study will be a very thick, study, and it will be submitted to the county staff and they'll review it. And we are on the hook to mitigate anything, per this recommendation that we have to do for the development to be a safe development. So, thank you.
Just for a little point of clarification, I'll let you go, Jim. What we're talking about, since some of you that stepped up because I invited you, you could, but you haven't studied this. Condition number 3, which Guy skips over our standard 3 conditions. Condition number 3 always puts the onus on the property owner to correct and put turn lanes if necessary to mitigate some traffic control and people not jumping right out in front of others that are going too fast and things like that. So there is a condition that does require this property owner and this project to mitigate that to some extent. Now, we can't put speed bumps out on Jennings Mill Road, or can we change the speed limit without a whole bunch of other blah? But if there's enough traffic that they need a turn lane to get in and out of there without causing trouble, they'll have to produce that, all right, at that future traffic study. All right, so if we've answered that question as best we can right now, we'll move on and bring it up here to any questions my commissioners have.
I still got a question.
All right, we'll let Jeff come up first.
Hey, Jeff, do you have a drawing that shows the proposed buildings on that track? That's it.
Yeah, for the office building.
For the
That's right.
office building.
Mhm. That's the kind of tan colored are the buildings.
Okay, I just didn't see how that matched up with that parcel, but okay.
Yep.
I have a question for Scott. So in the spirit of what Jeff Carter mentioned, or number 4, the hip roofs,
Right.
and in the spirit of why you have that there as a recommendation, so that we have some idea of what we're getting. Is there wording used in the past that kind of captures the spiritual nature of both both spirits, right? That the spirit of the 2 questions.
I don't think you can have, both. It's either or,
Yeah.
right?
So.
And so, what staff believes is that, this area is surrounded by residential, right? And a lot of the office that's around it has developed with pitched roofs. You'll notice all of these around there. I granted across, on the Costco side, certainly that's not the vision or the intent for that area. But the proximity to Jennings Mill, we felt like it was most appropriate for it to have that pitched roof. Pitched roof hip, pitched roof gable, that probably wouldn't matter. But when you're talking parapet versus pitched, it's not the same.
I've got a question before you go.
Yeah.
And thinking about that, if there are no stipulations on it, let's say number 4 is not in play, then that leaves it open to any kind of roof you want for the 11 buildings.
It would revert back to their application and what was submitted in their architectural standards.
Okay.
Anybody else have something for Guy? Matt, I'm disappointed you couldn't have.
No, I'm good.
All right. So if we have thought about it and got most of our questions answered, we're at that time where I need to take a request for a motion.
I move that we approve P 230046 with the staff recommendation.
With all
Yeah.
5 staff. So Chris says. Propose that we approve with all 5 staff. recommendations. And Stephen's second that,
With recommendations.
okay? So. We have approved with the 5 conditions as per staff. Can I get a right hand if you agree with this? All right, so that's unanimous. All right. Guy, let's go to the next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Again, this is P 230073. Stephen Hale, owner. This is located at Hollow Creek Lane and Mars Hill Road, and Old Mars Hill Road. It's currently zoned AR in the Regional Center Character Area. And the request is a rezone from AR to OIP zoning for a dental office along Mars Hill Road. This is the concept plan that's been presented in your application packet, slightly larger version. These are the architectural images submitted. And staff recommends conditional approval with our standard 3 conditions. Thank you.
Gotcha. So now I'll ask for the owner or applicant or the applicant's agent, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dakota Crothers and I'm with Parker Poe tonight representing Brent and Mary Lynn Nail. Thank you. So what I'm showing here on this first slide is actually the existing Athens Oconee Dentistry office that Brent and Mary Lynn own. And then right down below is the property that we're talking about tonight. And I do want to say that I'm getting over a sickness, so if I have to stop and take a breath or talk, it's been a long 2 weeks of sickness. So on the north side, that's their existing office. South highlighted, that is what we're looking at tonight. Unfortunately, Brent and Mary Lynn are being impacted by a GDOT road project on their existing property. They love that property. They put so much work and time into it. Was just built, I believe, less than 5 years ago. Rezoned and built. It is a beautiful property. Those architectural images that you saw, that is what it is. That is what they want to go for. So this is the future development map. And as you can see, it's zoned regional center character area. And over there, it's really meant for and allowed for medical and professional offices, even dental offices. And so looking at this with Guy, when they first were looking at properties, this is something that they were looking for a regional center. And more so what they want to do is have that commercial office property, but this is a small neighborhood commercial use that can really blend in with the residential that's behind there. So you guys have done this map correctly. You guys have the, office commercial right up on the major roads, Mars Hill, Oconee connector, and then you've got your residential to the back. That's perfect. So looking at the zoning map, I know Guy went over this. I'll try to be short and sweet, but we've got this as AR going to OIP. There is some different things scattered around. This is an existing residential property with residential in the back, but then B1, B2, and OIP all around. This is what their proposed site plan will look like. This is what we've submitted with the application. You can see the parking, the entrance, some of the landscaping, and the buffers. Brent and Mary Lynn want to make sure that they do everything by the code, including that of the Mars Hill overlay, which this does fall into, except for 2 variances that we will be requesting. And I do understand that those 2 variances go before the Board of Commissioners, but if you all have any questions on those, we'd be happy to speak on them and go in more detail. As I said, this is the existing property. These are not renderings. This is the existing property. It's beautiful. I can't even tell you, I've toured this place. They are so proud of it and they want to recreate the same thing. It's residential style, so it blends right in with any nearby residential properties. It's beautiful inside and out. And one thing I do want to mention before I go is the time that Brent and Mary Lynn have put into this process. even before they applied, we sent out some flyers to have an open house at their existing dental office to just show folks, what it was going to look like at the new property, to invite those neighbors. I believe we sent out about, I don't have the exact number, I want to say it was about 65 invites to neighboring properties. And 2 folks showed up to the first meeting. And then we had a secondary meeting after the application was filed. One attendee showed up and he was actually in favor. The first 2, I was unable to attend. My colleague attended, and it was mostly, and if anybody's here tonight, they can speak more on it, but it's mostly what we gather is kind of a fear of the turnover of residential to commercial in the area, which we understand when you have a residential property, especially when you've lived there for a long time, it's kind of hard to see things go to commercial. This, though, is something that we want to keep small. This is not a large warehouse use. This is not something that pulls a lot of traffic. This is something that blends in with the community, and Brent and Mary Lynn especially want to make sure that they include the community, wanted to include the community on any of these plans and drawings. They are here tonight, back behind me, and so we are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So it's at this point, you guys have sat through this so far, and I'll ask if there's anybody else that wants to speak in favor. Sometimes the owners themselves or the applicants speak, they don't have to. All right, so I don't see any more. I'll reserve the rest of your time for that if we need to have you come up and answer questions. So I have a few listed to speak in opposition. I'll go down the list. I have I think it says D Strickland. Okay. And so Sam Strickland, I got you. You guys are you're gonna say it one time for the 2 of you. I got it.
I introduced myself again, Sam Strickland. I live at 1030 Hollow Creek Way. Down on the cul-de-sac. I've been down there for 42 years. It is a pocket neighborhood. We've experienced a tremendous amount of growth all around us in every direction. We've seen traffic volumes go up. The conditions that we find ourselves in, I know that our police station has about 62 officers in patrol, and they stay pretty busy up there around the Oconee connector, around 316, Morris Hill being the thoroughfare from 78 down to the Daniels Bridge road interchange there. And we have a beautiful parkway going off down toward Watsonville. Our subdivision is about 33 homes. When it's fully populated, we might have that many cars twice. So 66. Traffic in and out of that, the way the road is designed, the way that the Hollow Creek Lane comes up and meets Mars Hill. It's a 90-degree operation. It's not easily in or out, never has been. Traffic volumes being high like they are now, it's dangerous. We have a new intersection down there at the Oconee connector and Mars Hill continuation to Watsonville. It's very, very busy. We got big trucks. We got a lot of things happening there. We got a piece of property across the street from the property in question here. That is a real large development that's pending, and I appreciate the participation of all you guys in that so far. I think you've done the right thing, hit the right note. I'd love to see the county buy it and make a green space, if you know what I mean. It can't happen, but here's the thing. We've got a small neighborhood. We've got one exit we can get out of it, and we immediately meet the backup of the traffic in the intersection. I don't see any way that going from residential, which has been the property has been since before the neighborhood was actually built, to any other zoning would be appropriate. We're just a small neighborhood. We just have that one exit out of the neighborhood, one entrance. It's not a really well designed. I think Morris Hill Road is going to have to be restructured at some point to deal with the Maxi Price issue or whatever else goes on that property. And I think we're way ahead of the game to be fiddling around with the lots on the front of Oak Ridge subdivision. I'm not in my position to dentistry. I hate that the guy got in the shape that he did in this other place. As far as the sentiment goes in the neighborhood, I've spoken with a lot of the members in the neighborhood, and they, with the exception of a couple, think that it's probably better that we see what we've got to work with what happens on the other property and the reconfiguration of Morris Hill, and whether we've got a roundabout, a flyover, whatever the case may be, that handles our exit and our entrance to our subdivision. And that affects us greatly. We got school buses that run through there every day. So we have a lot of traffic, and that's our concern. Right now, we don't think that property ought to be anything other than what it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, so that takes care of the first two. I've got an Ian Taylor. Listen, there you go.
Get me twice tonight. Kind of to reiterate a little bit what I said, I really feel for the dentist. I was one of the people that went to their open house to see the plan. I really do appreciate the doctors reaching out early, with this. And we really do feel for them. And I've tried to really get on board with this. But to the issue, what they're looking to do is knock down a house that's there to put this on. And we've got plenty of property in Oconee County that we can build on without knocking down residential property. And the whole question of the traffic and issues, everything's up in there. We don't know what's happening with the Oconee connector. We don't know what's going to happen. So just, changing what is part of a neighborhood for a dentist office is, I don't know if this is the right time for that. You guys just rezoned a bunch of property just on the other side there for, just this type of development not too long ago. So really, that's really what I kind of got to say. Do we really want to tear down resident? It's not like it's zoned residential. We're going to build something new on. There's actually a house on there right now that was going to get knocked down. So there is, the folks could just sell the house and there would be no hardship there. Anyway, that's my point.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I have a Joe and Kathy Opie. You one spokesman or two? No. Okay,
Usually she does the talking behind.
all right.
Joe Opie, 1390 Hollow Creek Lane. I agree with everything he said.
Okay, there's the.
But I do have one question probably with the guy. What happens to the,
Again, we have to throw the questions in the air, but we'll try to
Okay,
get them
throw it
answered.
in the
There you go.
what happens to the affluent problem? Offices, will they be allowed to use a septic tank?
Okay. So again, we'll have to leave it there. and We'll try to get your question answered. All right. So that takes care of those that have signed up ahead of time. Do I have anybody else that needs to speak in opposition at this time? Okay, so the way it works, I'll close the opposition and then I'll let somebody try to answer a few of those questions that we've thrown in the air. But I need to have anybody that speaks in opposition, go ahead and speak now. Okay. All right, I don't see any, I got some hands now. This is why I try to persuade the crowd. I'm going once, going.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I am
Just
not
give me your
public
name and your
speaker. I'm
address,
vaping
please.
up here. Susan Jungles, 1380 Hollow Creek Lane.
Okay.
I second everything everyone has said, including my sympathies for your situation. I think it's an awful thing to be put into, but my concern is, obviously this section of property on both sides of the road is very attractive for people wanting to develop for other things. And I just think taking it from a residential to any type of commercial or business is a slippery slope for us right there. Because the next time somebody's here, they're going to say, you let them do it. We're just right next door. We're going to do the same thing. And then our neighborhood's gone. We are a pocket, very small neighborhood. That's my concern. Thank you.
All right. So when she got brave enough, I also saw some other hands. You want to go ahead? Okay, so just a big ditto. I need a name, please. We'll go ahead and accept that today. Lisa Crabtree, thank you. All right. So we've thrown a couple of questions up and the applicant's agent has a little bit of time. I don't know if you can address those, but go ahead and give us.
I can. That was an awful lot of time waiting for opposition. So.
I have to work the crowd sometimes.
I'm just kidding with you. I'm just kidding. No, well, so we want to address traffic first. This is, we want to try not to be pulled in with any neighboring developments that may be coming through. Number one, because Brent and Mary Lynn know very well the development that's being discussed. I've been to several of those meetings and I understand the frustrations with that. This is not that. This is a small neighborhood service use. This is something that is a benefit to the community in just the small area, and in the wider area, if we're remembering the map, how close their existing office is. I believe it's less than a mile actually to the new office. So in the greater area, we're not creating any further traffic. This is we're getting rid of one and putting the same thing in. And so this is a net difference widely. And at that existing entrance right there, the entrance is okay to accommodate this development. And that's something that we're going to go through with LDP. As you guys know, we're going to get into traffic, turn lanes, such like that. But the Publix, I'm sorry, the development across the street, that if that were to go in, those traffic issues will be dealt with at that time. That's a totally separate project. So I just want to kind of differentiate us there. We also, unfortunately, don't have the time to wait to see what happens with it. We're kind of at the mercy of GDOT with this. There are a lot of negotiations going on behind the scenes, so much so that we are really at the mercy of them with that. So unfortunately, we can't wait to see what happens and what we can do to work with neighboring properties. We just don't have that luxury. Let's see. And then I heard a question about septic or sewer. This will be connected to sewer. We're going to gravity down and connect at the bottom of Mars Hill Road. And then I think it's just kind of been a general question about turnover of commercial, and Guy may be able to speak to this too. This is going off of looking at the future development map and looking at commercial projects that are that are adjacent to Mars Hill Road and the Oconee connector, and then having residential back behind that. That's what it's intended for. That is your standard planning practice. That's what you want to do. And so to think it'll domino behind, that's just not something that's going to follow the future development map. So if you're following the map, that's not something that's going to happen. There's a few next door, but as far as going back all the way into the residential, that's just not the way it would work if you so voted with your map. And that's all I'll add. If there's any other questions, we'll come back up.
All right, as always, I think she's done the best she could to answer some of those questions. Some of them have to float in the air a little bit longer. But I've already closed the opposition time to speak. Now I'm closing the in favor time to speak, and I'm bringing it up here to my colleagues. Unfortunately, that's kind of how we run these meetings. So as you get ready for the Board of Commissions version of it, you'll have to but we might be able to answer those questions just by answering our own questions here. All right, so I've closed public speaking. It's up to you guys to answer any other questions that you might have and or ask more questions on the same topic.
I got a question for Guy.
All right.
Guy, can you remind us how the Mars Hill overlay works and why a piece of property that fronts Mars Hill Road can't come out into Mars Hill Road? Like the driveway?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, the driveway.
The
Why
driveway issue.
are we putting the driveway on Hall Creek
Right.
when a commercial driveway, even though it faces Mars Hill, can't get out on it as per
Yeah.
the overlay? So
Well-
can you help us with?
Well, it's more of a UDC standard. So, if you were to place an access drive here would be difficult in between these two entrances. So you already have two existing streets. They're pretty close together. And adding another one, another conflict point with an entrance there would be not advantageous, right? And so I think what they're proposing here is somewhat safer in that it comes out to an existing entrance with a stop condition as opposed to adding another stop condition.
Right, so it's not applicants basically choice to do that. That's what our code says.
Well, it is their request, and that's through the variance that's going to the Board of Commissioners is for that use.
Right, okay.
I have the overlay if you want to look at that. But this was, you can see when we designed the board.
Yeah, the future land use map and the overlay both show these properties along Mars Hill, as you can see here, as on the fringe of that regional center, and then as a developing area in the overlay. So these are both public planning documents that were adopted by the board through a lot of public input that suggested these areas be some type of office use. You have the church and others in this area, and the properties in this area as office. So.
The question is always timing as these things are developed. So anyway, all right. Is that it for Guy? Anybody else?
I don't have a question. I just have my own thoughts.
You can share those with your comment.
Could you put that slide that you just had back up, Guy? So if you look at this out of the context of reality, you would think, well, they're just rectangles on a map with blue on top of it. But there are houses on those rectangles. And anybody that is living in that area, Hollow Creek, or the vicinity of that area, has bought and lived in that area with the expectation there are houses on the plots that already have houses on them. It's not an empty lot. So I have a big issue with tearing down houses in a county that many would say there aren't enough houses for people to buy, and putting in commercial. And again, I think there are alternatives for a dental practice, even some that we may have gone through this evening. So that's just my thought. I don't have a question. That's just the way I'm thinking about this.
No, these are comments that we're talking to each other as colleagues here.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take the opposite side of Chris, saying that we did all this work to enhance Mars Hill Road corridor and had all kinds of public participation, all kinds of opportunity for public participation, and this is the outcome. And I feel we should stick with what we chose to do.
This poor neighborhood there wasn't a 316. This neighborhood.
No,
so
I understand.
things are changing. All right.
They changed. When I was a boy, we had a lot of dirt roads. We don't even know.
All right, any more questions or comments amongst the commission? Like I did with the opposition, I have to give you guys some time to think. But eventually I have to ask you for a motion.
Based on the overlay map, a motion to approve the staff recommendations.
All right, so we're gonna start with Stevens. Gonna throw one out with conditions and things mentioned by staff. He wants to propose that we vote to approve.
I'll say.
So Matt's second and so I have any more discussion on motion to approve with the conditions as recommended by staff. All right, if there's no other comments on that particular motion, I'll ask for a vote with the right hand, please. Those in favor of approving with conditions as stated by staff. please raise your right hand. So I get 2 and those opposed. I get 4, so that motion failed. I need another motion, please.
I move that we deny the rezone request with P 23007.
Got it. So Chris says proposed motion to deny. I need a second. Second. All right. So I have now a first and a second to deny the motion as per the application. Can I get a raise the right hand if you vote to deny? I get 4. And those in opposition of the denial motion. 4-2. 4 wins, so that'll be sent out to the Board of Commissioners. And they will take it from there. All right, so guys, that actually wraps up our business for tonight. So I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'll make one.
All right,
Good, Jared.
Matt and Chris, and if you want to vote against it, just stick around.